Hello and welcome back to the Trempealeau County Sheriff's Update. I'm your host Kevin Bargender, and today we're joined by Trempealeau County Sheriff Brett Semingson. Welcome, Brett.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me again today.
Yeah, so I guess let's just dive into it. What are some updates with Trempealeau County?
Well, it seems like we're always got some new and exciting things coming here, but probably one of the biggest things in the last couple of years is that we are now finally operating in our brand new dispatch center. The whole idea of the new Justice Center was that we would be moving in as a unit, being the sheriff's admin, the jail, and dispatch center, all in January of 2023. That was or 2024. But as things panned out, our dispatch center got delayed, and we moved in 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and things are going very good there. I will say that it was a joint effort by my dispatch team, my chief deputy, our IT department, and our maintenance department here to make that happen so smoothly. There's a lot of working components when you're thinking of moving a 911 center, all of our radios, our records management system, anything to do with dispatch without being down. You move from one part of the building to another and you can't have downtime. You got to be able to answer the calls and you got to be able to come in. So with the hard work that those folks put forward, if you were listening to the scanner that day, you would not have known that anything was happening. So, but very exciting here. We're glad to be in there and everything's working great. So that's the final piece of the puzzle of the Justice Center. And hopefully that we have a solution here now that's going to be good for decades to come.
Yeah, and I know the dispatchers were very anxious to get over there, and they waited very patiently for a long time.
They did. They deserve more credit than a person could ever give them. The rest of the staff enjoyed the luxuries of the new facility, and the accommodations makes it easier to come to work. It makes it easier to do the job. It affects morale, and they still sat in the old dispatch center. And the thing about it is the dispatch center they were in. They've only been in there for a few years, and it was a great upgrade from what they were when they were in the basement of the old building. And so they still knew they had a nice facility compared to previous facilities. But again, I'm sure that they were chomping at the bit to see the new facility, the new equipment, and the new software, and be part of the sheriff's office again. They've always been part of the sheriff's office. And when you're not in the same building, you kind of feel removed from that. So for me, it's great to know that they're back within the confines of the sheriff's office, and that they understand for sure now that they are part of us. They're one of the team. So.
And I know it's been a little early still, but how are they adjusting to that?
It's been a little bit of a learning curve with the new software, but we have some very tech-savvy dispatchers, and for those who aren't as tech-savvy, the others are great mentors, and they make sure that everybody knows their job and they learn off of one another, and because of that, they've assimilated very well, and they're doing very well over there from everything I hear. So
awesome. And do you have any new developments or public service announcements?
That's one thing I just mentioned is, obviously this time of year, the deer seem to go crazy. And if you haven't noticed when you're out on the road, you will. And they're just running all over the place. And it doesn't matter if it's 10 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock in the morning. And so I just urge all the motorists to be extra vigilant this time of year, and it's the same with farm equipment. We're right in the middle of harvest season, maybe finishing up a little bit, but some very large and sometimes slow moving equipment out there, and we got a plan for this time of year to be safe and give ourselves extra time and just be extra vigilant when we're going down the road, because those additional hazards are out there. They will be for a couple more weeks yet, so. Leave early and enjoy the scenery. That's what I say. Leave early enough so that you can enjoy what nature has to give us, as you're going to work or wherever it is you're going. So, one thing I wanted to add as far as updates with the sheriff is that if you haven't been listening to the county board meetings recently, with the new facility, we're a solution that is good was built for 50 years, but obviously our inmate population of our own isn't there yet. In 50 years, we're anticipating that type of population. So we've been able to take advantage of some bed space up there, and we are now renting out bed space to other jails. And Buffalo County just signed a contract with us here this fall to take all their inmates. They're having a hard time getting staffing levels where they have to be over there. So we right now have all of Buffalo County's inmates in our jail. We have a few from Jackson County, and it's turned into a revenue source that we can use until we are to the point where our own numbers are high where we couldn't do it anymore, and gives us a chance to recoup some of those costs of the Justice Center. So I just wanted to throw that in there too, because not everybody really understands that or even knows that that's going on. So.
Yeah, and you've got a reentry coordinator position also coming up here.
So, yep, with the passing of the budget yesterday, the sheriff's office, the jail, will see 2 new positions. One is called a community reentry coordinator, and that position is in place to help the inmates become or be more successful once they're released from custody. It's really geared towards those that have a drug dependency and maybe accompanying mental health issue, and it will hopefully develop resources within our community where we'll be able to find employers for them. We'll be able to help them get to the treatments they need to overcome their addictions. And that position is totally funded by opioid settlement money that Trempealeau County has received over the last few years, and we're going to put that to that use, and hopefully that will help us combat some of the opioid problems we have in our county. The county board also approved a jail programming director, and with the numbers of inmates we have in our jails now, we'll be able to offer so many more programming opportunities to help those inmates be able to succeed or give a better chance to succeed when they're back out in the community again. And what that is, it'll help them get a GED or help them get a driver's license, and maybe some education classes where they might need some finance assistance, or how to manage a checkbook, or how to be a parent, how to be a citizen of your community. And this just greatly enhances our ability to offer those programs. It expands on a program we already have in the jail. But it gives us the ability to expand more and give more opportunities, and hope to reduce that recidivism rate. Once the folks are released from our jail, they have a much better chance of succeeding out there and not falling back into those traps that got them into trouble to start with. So.
Yeah, and I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but do you have any tips or suggestions for hunters coming up here, as we're right around the corner from?
Yeah, well, we're right in the middle of it. Bow hunting is out there now. The not quite as dangerous as the gun season. The tips I would give are basically DNR types of tips. The stuff you'd hear from game wardens. But the sheriff's office doesn't enforce hunting hours and doesn't enforce the illegal taking of game. If we get those complaints, we forward them to the DNR. But I can say that the safety things that are out there in place, heed those, and wear your blaze orange when we're supposed to. And it's so important that other hunters have a chance to see you. It seems like more and more hunters are in the woods this time of year, and that just goes to reason. And if you're not wearing blaze orange and don't stick out, you might be in a place where another hunter wouldn't even think that somebody's there. So heed the laws, wear the blaze orange. If you are, if you're going to shoot at game, really pay attention to what's behind that. It's hunter safety education, know your target and beyond. The bullet doesn't stop when it hits its intended target. It typically travels for a long distance after that. So, know what's out there beyond your target. And when you're moving around and don't necessarily have to have your gun loaded, unload it. And it's safer when there's not a bullet in the chamber. And anything can happen, and trip and fall or accidentally get your finger where it don't belong and have an accidental discharge. And if you only have one in the chamber when you really intend to have one there, it really will lessen the chance of an accident. So those are the biggest things: is be seen and be safe. Safe handling of the firearm is so important. And we're getting younger and younger kids involved in hunting. If the kids are supposed to have an adult with them, make sure there's an adult with them. That's not been the rules, and let these young kids go on their own, because it's just, they're not ready for that yet. They certainly can enjoy the hunt with their parent or their relative with them, but don't let's not think that they're ready for hunting by themselves, because they're not. So.
Yeah, and speaking of the hunting season, it's also getting closer to winter. We had a really nice and warm fall so far,
Yep.
but we're getting closer to winter. What do you kind of see coming up here in the next month?
Well, obviously, any day now, you can see the change of road conditions. Even a fog at night can turn into an icy road by morning now. So, pay attention to the weather, and pay attention to the road when you're driving. You may not be able to see that there's ice on the roads in the morning, but it could especially bridges and culverts. They'll tend to freeze up first. If it's forecast for snow, again, give yourself some time. Leave early, and don't be rushed. And always drive defensively. We always worry about our kids or our family out on the road and how they're going to drive, but everybody really needs to worry about what the other drivers are doing. You gotta drive defensively all the time, and especially when the roads are slick, and be ready to take evasive action. And what I do is, when I'm driving down the road and just have some time to think, I thought, what would I do if this happened here right now? And try to play through some scenarios. And the more you do stuff like that, the more you'll instinctively respond if something all of a sudden gets out in front of your vehicle where you got to take some type of evasive action. So.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's how I drive too. I feel like I'm just like, even if I'm coming to an intersection, like what happens if this person doesn't stop, or if they can't stop? Will I have enough time to either give it a little bit more gas and get out of there, or if I can stop myself and avoid it?
Right.
So that's kind of how I see it, even in intersections, just because that's, I feel like, a really high probability of
especially
accidents.
The rural ones where the speeds are higher. The through roads with an intersection where the side roads are stopped with a stop sign. It's always look both directions. As you approach that road, is to the extent that you can see both ways, because people out there they're either taking a chance and they're not going to stop, or they're not paying attention and they don't see the stop sign. And when the roads are slick, they're just not going to be able to stop. Don't just look straight ahead. Always watch your mirrors and the side roads as you approach them.
Yeah, no tunnel vision.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
And we sort of buried the lead on purpose here, but you have a little bit of an announcement here.
Yes. So I've decided that the time has come that I retire from law enforcement. I'll be done on December 5th, and it was kind of a difficult decision. I've been pondering it all year. It's not something that I just decided all of a sudden that it's time to go. And when the time came to actually drop the notice into the mailbox, that was the toughest part. It's been a great job here. I'm gonna miss working with all the folks around here. I'll miss the law enforcement, but there's a lot of the stresses of the office of sheriff that I'm not going to miss. And I've decided that it's time to make some time for my family. My wife and I haven't really done a lot of traveling or vacationing, so this will give us an opportunity to do some of those things. And I've got grandkids that are demanding our attention more and more all the time, and are going to be busy with after-school activities here coming before long. And my age. A law enforcement officer in Wisconsin can, and typically do, retire at age 53. And I'm 58 years old now, so a lot of the folks that I started in law enforcement with and became a family basically with have all since retired, and I don't have those bonds out there anymore. And don't get me wrong, the folks I work with now are great people, but it's different. You just don't have that relationship like you did, and you see those retire, and none of them have ever said they wish they wouldn't have, and how great life is. So I figured it's time for me to turn the reins over to the next person, and I have the attitude that change is good. I hope I leave the sheriff's office in a place better than I found it, and I hope the next person can make it better than what it is now, and that we can keep improving. And I know there's ways to improve. I will never say that I did everything right, and I just think that new blood in that place, in that chair, and young blood or younger blood, and new ideas, and just being different will revitalize the sheriff's office and keep it moving in a forward direction. So
yeah, I really appreciate the humble attitude of just being open to improving and not knowing that there's a lot you don't know.
Oh, absolutely. And things change all the time too in law enforcement and technology. And I'm not speaking for everybody who's 58 years old or older than I am, but I've seen it over the years that as we get older, it's tougher to embrace the technology changes as they come as well. And I don't want to be the one holding us back because I don't pursue technology like we should. It's making the job easier. It comes at an expense, but it's making the job easier. It's making our ability to provide a great service to the community here more efficient. And I hope the next person is going to have a renewed energy and hopefully keep us moving forward in that area as well.
So you've had 7 years as the sheriff. You've had 36 years with Trempealeau County. Kind of walk me through that a little bit.
Sure. In July of 1989, I finished my certification to be a law enforcement officer. I hadn't finished my associate degree yet, but I was able to get the certification a little bit earlier. And July of 1989, I got that, and that was a Friday. And that same day, the jail administrator at the time called me and asked me if I wanted to work some part-time hours in the jail, and I did. I was there that night, and I started learning. I think I worked 2 shifts before they decided that they needed some help, and they wanted me to work alone. And it was basically a full-time job for the next year and a half in the jail, along with working for the Village of Strom and City of Osseo and the City of Whitehall. I put some hours into those police departments as well. But the sheriff's office was my first hire. I didn't even have to apply for it. That's unheard of now. You got to apply and go through all the bells and whistles and psychological evaluations, and all good reasons, all good things. But just funny how things change. And I did not have to apply for a job here. And so then in March of 1991, I was hired full time to work in the jail. And at that time, the jail and the dispatch center were together. There was a male and a female, and they did jail and dispatch duties together, just the 2 of them. We maybe had 20 inmates in our jail on at a busy time, and I remember over the Christmas holidays, we'd be down to 1 2-man cell block that had people in it. It'd be 2 people in jail. So a person could do it back then, where 2 people could manage a dispatch center and a jail. And so that, of course, that changed a few years later when they separated dispatch from the jail. But I worked in that capacity for about a year, and then I started working as a traffic deputy combined with a jailer. So I would work 3 days on the road and then 3 days in the jail dispatch center. I did that for a couple of years, and then what became a full-time traffic officer, a position that I held until 2008. In 2008, I was promoted to sergeant and oversaw the traffic division for a number of years until I was promoted to a lieutenant and then eventually a captain. And in 2018, I ran for sheriff and was elected and began that in January of 2019. So I've worked in all areas of the sheriff's office. As a traffic deputy, I did investigations, but I was never a detective. That's the only thing that I didn't do here. But we do investigations as traffic deputies as well. So seen a number of changes over the years. I've said it a couple of times here that when I started, everything was done with pen and paper, and the only thing that was automatic was we ordered our complaint forms from a print shop in Galesville, and they came sequentially numbered, so you didn't have to figure out what the next number was. It was on the form already. But outside of that, everything was handwritten or typed on a typewriter. We weren't using computers yet at that time to much of an extent. So and then our squad cars had a radio and a radar, and that was it. And if you look at squad cars today, they've got the radio and the radar, but they've also got computers and printers and video systems, and GPS. It's a mobile office is what it is. Resembles the cockpit of an airplane. I said, if you ever get a chance to take a peek at one, especially at night when all the lights are on, it's pretty amazing how far we've come in 36 years. So, I've seen the technology changes, both inside the building with records management becoming digitalized. With the video systems we have in our cars, from moving from, we had one system, one car that had it. It happened to be my car back in the 90s. A car that I shared with another deputy was a VHS format. We had big cumbersome VHS players in the trunk of the car, and now of course they're digital. Everything can fit into this flower pot, and it's all digital and wirelessly transmitted to a server. Here at the courthouse, and like I said, a deputy wouldn't even have to come here anymore. They can do their work from their squad car. So, a lot of changes over the years, and it's been well received here in Trempealeau County. We've had a lot of support from the county board over the years because it comes with a price tag as well. And that's one thing I'll say is that Trempealeau County has been so supportive of law enforcement over the years. It's really amazing. And I belong to the Badger State Sheriff's Association, and I hear stories from sheriffs all across Wisconsin that make me very thankful that I work right here in Trempealeau County. And I will say that the year 2020 really solidified that when COVID came along, and then we had the anti-police movement that was going out there with our national media outlets. Providing only part of the story to get the public riled up, and then what happened after that is history, I guess. But that didn't happen here in Trempealeau County. People would go out of their way to call us or come up here to tell us that they appreciate law enforcement here and that they trust us, and that's the only reason I made it through that time period, because I could go home and I could shut the TV off, and I wouldn't have to look at Facebook and read all those negative posts. And the next day, come to the sheriff's office, and there's a card there or a can of coffee that somebody dropped off for us, or just the positive support was very amazing. And we're fortunate here. My successor will see the same, that the public is outgoing, and they will go out of their way to let us know that they appreciate law enforcement here. So it's been a great ride, and I would, if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would do it right here for sure. So
awesome. So what would you say are some of your highlights throughout the 36 years?
Well, I would say I'll start out as sheriff here. The completion of the Justice Center that started back in the 90s. There's been 4 attempts to modify or build a new jail here in Trempealeau County since the mid 90s, and the one we were in opened in 1982. So you can imagine, and rightfully so, there was some pushback early on that they're talking about replacing a 14-year-old building already, and so it became a long, drawn-out process. And over the years, jail populations changed, needs changed, but in 2020, when COVID came along, it really showed us how poorly our old jail was designed for not only the inmates but for the staff, and the safety of both became an issue. And the hard work of the county board at that time, and a lot of my staff, as well as the rest of the justice system, judge's office and the district attorney's office, child support, and the clerk of courts, we came up with a product that was hopefully good for 50 years. We did a lot of community notifications and community meetings, and we had a website set up. They hired the Samuels Group construction manager, and they made sure that we got the information out to the public, and it was a success, of course. And in 2021, they gave us the green light to send it out for bids, and once they accepted bids, we started construction. And then the month they started construction was when supply chains started to get disrupted, and costs are going through the roof, and inflation was, talk about inflation going through the roof. And our building at that time was bid out at an estimate of $40 million. And the bids came in at around $45 million because they were starting to see those supply costs go up. But I'm not kidding when I said, like, the day before interest rates rose, they locked in a great interest rate. And to build this building today, our construction manager tells us it would easily be $70 million. And so the timing worked out great. The bond structure of the county worked out great, so that it was very minimally affecting the tax roll. And so everything fell into place, and a many-year project finally came to fruition. And I was glad to be part of that. I don't know that I would have ran for a second term if we had the building done. I mean, that's how passionate I was to get it done. Is I did run for another term just to see through the building to the end. So, that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments. But just to keep us moving forward in technology, that's expensive, and to be creative and convincing and find ways to get the approvals to do those things was rewarding. Because I know everything we did was another step to keep my staff safe and give them a better ability to do their jobs. And of course, it's exciting when you are up current with technology, or current with equipment, and you're the ones that the other agencies look towards, saying, I wish we could do that, and we were able to do that. So it became a place where everybody wanted to work. And we've got some great employees because of that over the years. So, those, I guess, those would be the biggest accomplishments. And for me, as a traffic deputy, for me to be able to go out there and give somebody some assistance on a bad day in their life and maybe make things better, was always rewarding as well. It was kind of an unintended consequence. I'm not one going around saying I got into this because I wanted to help people, because that's a given. You know that. But when you see the effects of it, then you know why you did it, and that's very rewarding.
So what do you think you're going to miss the most about when you finally do leave here in December? What's kind of your biggest thing you think you're going to walk away from?
The friendships and the professional relationships that I've developed here over the years, and not just within the sheriff's office, but in the entire courthouse. I've been here for 36 and a half years, and I've seen a lot of faces come and go, and there's some faces that are here that have been here with me the whole time, and those interactions, I'll miss. I plan on coming down and visiting every now and then, at least for a while. Everybody says that, and then it kind of goes away. But I think I will, because I'll miss that stuff. I'm not going to miss much about the life of a sheriff. The stresses that come with that are a big reason I'm stepping down as well. And I've never been a really political guy, and you're drawn right front and center into politics, and I won't miss that. I've had some input in some important bills in the state of Wisconsin through my affiliation with the Badger State Sheriffs. That type of politics has been rewarding, but the politics of just what comes out of the localness, and what can you do for me, and I voted for you, and so and so is applying for a job there. What can you do, and that type of stuff. It never really did sit well for me, and everybody gets a fair share with me, and a fair crack at it, and that type of stuff was hard to hear, because that's not what I did, and so I won't miss that. But I don't think I'm going to miss not knowing what's going on, or knowing what's going on. I might keep a scanner on, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to come on for a while, because when it doesn't matter if I'm in church, or if I'm at the store, or if I'm at work, everybody expects me to know what's going on, and when they heard sirens the night before, and they come to me right away, and I won't miss that stuff. I don't like talking shop at home, and I won't miss that at all. So,
do you still plan on being involved in the community even after this year?
Well, yes, my own community, of course. I'm the president of the Broiler Festival up there in Oliva. I've been doing that for many years, and we got a great group of people that help put that together as well. So I'm going to continue doing that probably as long as I can. There's nobody standing in line to replace me for that job either. So I'm on the fire department, and I hope to be able to spend more time at the fire department now and do some things there as well. So always been a community volunteer, always will be. So this won't affect that at all.
As we wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, anybody who's listening here, I just want to thank all of you for putting your trust in me over the years. Whether or not you voted for me, I hope I was the sheriff that you expected to see here. And I got a lot of good feedback, and I feel good about the job. But it's because of you folks that I had this opportunity, and I thank you for that. So
awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you personally for your service with Trempealeau County and for doing this show too and providing a lot of transparency to our viewers in Trempealeau County.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And again, I'm your host, Kevin Bargender, and we'll see you next time on the Trempealeau County Sheriff's Update.